All right, so we've all stayed in a hotel.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's almost like a universal experience.
Yeah. I mean, everybody, it seems like, has stayed at a hotel at least once or twice.
Right, and there's something, I don't know, kind of both exciting and a little bit unsettling about being in a hotel.
Yeah, like you're not in your own space. You're in a totally different space.
Yeah, exactly. And, you think about all the people who have stayed in that room before you.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I don't know, there's just something kind of eerie about that and thinking about, what if some of those guests never really left?
Yeah, it's spooky to think about.
So today we're going to do a deep dive into a collection of stories from hotel employees.
Oh, wow.
Who claim to have encountered some really strange stuff, some paranormal activity.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
And I think what makes these stories even more interesting is that they come from people whose jobs are all about observation.
Right, like they're trained to see things.
Exactly. So we're talking about like night receptionists, housekeepers, a concierge even.
Okay, so people who are really paying attention to their surroundings.
Exactly. So they're not likely to just imagine things.
Right, makes sense.
So let's jump into our first story.
Okay.
This one comes from Sarah, who's a night receptionist.
Okay.
And she describes seeing a shadowy figure knocking on a guest's door.
Oh, wow.
And then just like poof, vanishing into thin air.
Okay, that's a little creepy.
Yeah, I mean, if I saw that, I would immediately be like, okay, how much coffee have I had?
Right. Am I seeing things?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But what makes Sarah's story really interesting is the detail about the guest's door.
Okay, yeah, what about it?
Like, it wasn't just a random shadowy figure in the hallway.
Right.
It was specifically targeting this one room.
Oh, okay, now that is strange.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what was going on there.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, tricks of the light, hallucinations.
Right.
But it's just that specific detail that's kind of unsettling.
Exactly. And this idea of something specific happening rather than just like a general creepy feeling comes up again in Mike's story.
Okay, tell me about Mike.
So Mike was a banquet manager, and he was working late one night in the ballroom.
Okay.
And he heard laughter.
Laughter in an empty ballroom.
Yeah, empty ballroom.
Okay.
And then get this, he sees footprints appearing out of nowhere.
What? How is that even possible?
I know, right? I mean, that's where I start to get really freaked out.
Footprints, that's beyond just like a spooky sound.
Right. And so, I was thinking about this, and maybe it has something to do with the acoustics of a big empty space like a ballroom.
Yeah, phantom sounds are definitely a thing.
Right, like maybe he was hearing an echo of a past event.
Yeah, like an auditory imprint or something.
Right, but then how do you get phantom footprints?
You're right, that's where it gets really weird.
Exactly. So maybe it's not just sounds that can leave an imprint.
Huh. Yeah, maybe it's like energy or something.
Right, like some kind of residual haunting where the energy of a past event is somehow still there.
Okay, so like if you think about like an old vinyl record.
Okay.
The music isn't live anymore, but the grooves in the record hold the imprint of that performance.
Right.
So maybe a location could work the same way, like it holds on to traces of what happened there.
It's like the hotel itself is trying to tell a story.
Yeah, but we only get these little fragments.
Yeah, and these fragments get even weirder with Linda's story.
Okay, who's Linda?
So Linda was working as a concierge.
Okay.
And she encountered this soaking wet elderly man.
Soaking wet in the hotel lobby.
Yeah, and here's the thing, he simply never existed.
What do you mean he never existed?
Like, there was no record of him checking in. Nobody else saw him.
But Linda saw him.
Linda saw him clear as day.
Okay, now this is just messing with my head.
I know, it's really strange.
So if Linda, whose job it is to greet guests and check them in, didn't see this guy check in, who did?
Exactly, and how could someone who was so drenched go unnoticed?
Right, you'd think that would be pretty memorable.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned residual hauntings earlier.
Yeah.
Could this be an example of that? Like an imprint of someone from the hotel's past just replaying itself?
It's possible.
Yeah.
And think about it, some moments in time are just so intense.
Yeah.
Particularly strong emotional experiences that they might leave some kind of trace.
Like an echo, but not of sound, but of presence.
Exactly.
So what does all this mean for us when we check into a hotel? Like, should we be looking over our shoulders for shadowy figures and listening for phantom laughter?
Well, I don't know if we need to be that paranoid.
Right.
But I think the takeaway here is that next time you're in a hotel, just take a moment to think about all of the stories those walls have witnessed.
Yeah, oh, the laughter, the tears, the comings and goings of countless lives.
Exactly. And those stories might not always be visible, but maybe they're not entirely gone either.
It really makes you wonder, what traces will we leave behind?
Yeah. And if hotels could talk, what stories would they tell?
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening.
It was a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be thinking about this next time I check into a hotel.
Me too, me too.
Until next time, sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. And maybe don't be surprised if you hear a little laughter in the hallway.
Or a knock on the door when no one's there.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Good night.